Raven Software has really done a number on the Krig. There are now 3 old school Modern Warfare guns, old favorites of mine and a lot of other Warzone players. They're now better than the Krig. They kill faster than the Krig at long range. We're going to talk about those in this video. So exactly which old school Modern Warfare guns are we talking about here? Well, until recently, these guns, like most Modern Warfare guns, have really been overshadowed by all the Cold War guns. I don't know what the deal is, but I think Activision just wants the latest guns to be the most powerful so people buy the skins or whatever it is. But thanks to some recent nerfs that the Krig has received, the classic Modern Warfare M4A1, Grau, and M13 all now kill faster than the Krig. For me, this is great news. I can't wait to get back in and use these guns again. We're going to take a look at the data that shows exactly how much better these 3 guns are than the Krig now. But since it might have been a while since you've used any of these Modern Warfare guns, I know it's been a while since I have, let's take a look at the meta builds for each one of them. Modern Warfare guns followed a very nice pattern for which attachments were meta for each gun. For the M4, we've got the monolithic suppressor. This not only helped keep us off the minimap, but it increased our damage and our damage at range. So for the barrel, we use the stock M16 Grenadier. It increases our damage at range and our range, as well as it helps us control the recoil. For the optic, we're going to use the VLK 3.0. This is just kind of the meta optic for assault rifles in Modern Warfare guns. For the underbarrel, we're going to use the Commando foregrip. Once again, this is just the meta foregrip for Modern Warfare guns, and it just helps us control the recoil, especially the side-to-side bounce. For the ammo, we need the 60-round mag. For the Grau, very similar. Monolithic suppressor, Tempest 26.4 Archangel. These are typically the longest barrels that we're going to be using on Modern Warfare assault rifles. Same optic, the VLK 3.0. Commando foregrip for the underbarrel, and the 60-round mags for the ammo. And we're going to do the same thing for the M13. Monolithic suppressor, Tempest Marksman, which is once again the longest barrel, the VLK 3.0 optic, Commando foregrip, and 60-round mag. This is the build we typically used for all the Modern Warfare assault rifles. The reason I wanted to show you the meta builds for these Modern Warfare assault rifles is because I think after you see what I'm going to show you next, you're going to want to go out and try these guns in Warzone. What we're seeing here is a comparison of the TTK, or time to kill, with chest shots between all 4 of these guns. We've got the Grau in kind of an orange color, we've got the Krig is kind of a pink color, the M13 is a light blue, and the M4 is a green color. And what we can see here is that while the Krig does kill slightly faster than all 3 of these guns in the first damage zone, in the second one, it suddenly becomes the slowest killing assault rifle. This is with chest shots. Take a look at what happens if we move to the stomach and extremities and head. So if we're going to use stomach shots to compare TTKs with these guns, the Krig now kills slower than all of them at longer ranges and at shorter ranges as well. So if we switch it to extremities, we can see that we have the exact same situation as if we did with stomach shots. The Krig no longer wins in TTK up close or at that longer damage range. The only place the Krig wins on this chart is that it enters that second damage range just a bit after the rest of them do. So you'll still get that damage of the first damage range a little bit longer while the other guns have moved into the second damage range. However, if you're using the M4, once it hits that second damage range, it still kills about as fast as the Krig does at the closer damage range. If we switch it to headshots, we can see here the M13 actually is king, but the Krig still isn't sitting in a very good position. It does beat the Grau and the M4 just a bit while it still is in that first damage range, but as soon as it moves to its second damage range, it once again enters last place for TTK. Now let's compare some of the measurable stats of each one of these guns and see how they stack up against each other. For the fire rate, the Krig is the slowest by quite a ways. As far as aim down sight speed goes, the Krig is kind of on the lower side of middle. The M13 and the Grau both beat it. Here's where the Krig does shine among this group of guns. It is a Cold War gun, and for some reason, Activision decided the Cold War guns were going to have better movement than all the Modern Warfare guns. So you can see here for movement speed, the Krig does allow you to move a little bit faster than the others, but it's not a huge difference. It also does have a little bit faster ADS movement speed than the others, but once again, it's not a massive difference. It's only a very small amount faster than any of these guns. As far as bullet velocity, it does have the slowest bullet velocity of all these guns, but they're all over 1100 meters per second. So really, all of these have very good bullet velocity. So the only thing in Warzone that's just as important as time to kill is how easy these guns are to control. So I did some recoil pattern testing. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so for my recoil pattern testing, I go to the exact same place on the map. I use plunder because nobody usually goes to this area, so I can do this kind of in peace. And I make sure I stand in pretty much the same place, the same distance away from this wall, and I shoot at the wall starting in as close to the same spot on the wall as I possibly can, so I can see how far up the recoil pattern goes, and so I can clearly see how far to the right or left it goes as well as how much distance ends up being between each bullet. So we're going to start with the Grau and the M4, followed by the M13 and the Krig. So if we take a look at the Grau's recoil pattern, it's pretty tight. The bullets are packed pretty close together. This is what you want. This is good. Not a whole lot of horizontal bounce in the recoil pattern. However, it does go up slightly and then to the left, and then it takes a little curve to the right, which can be potentially a little bit challenging for some players. But after that, it does continue pretty much up straight and a little bit to the right. The Grau is considered one of the easier Modern Warfare guns to control. Now for the M4A1, we can see here it's a relatively similar pattern. It does have a little more horizontal bounce, but the bullets are still pretty much in a straight line going up and a bit to the right, and they don't take as much of a hard break to the right as the Grau does down here. So then after that, the bullets continue on up and to the right. The M41 is considered a bit more challenging to control of the Modern Warfare guns in comparison to the Grau, but in my experience, it isn't terribly difficult to control the recoil in this gun. Now with the M13, we can see that overall magnitude, the size of the recoil pattern, these are all 60 rounds, but the overall size of the recoil pattern for the M13 is much smaller. It does start off heading straight up and a little bit to the left, and then it does take a not so drastic curve as the Grau, but it does take a curve off to the right, and then it does have a little more horizontal movement to it. The bullets are very tight and compact. There's not a lot of horizontal bounce, but it's not as much of a vertical to the right shift. It's a little more to the right than it is up as the bullets continue moving on. So some people consider the M13 pretty easy to use. Some people think it requires a little bit more stick movement down to the left than they're used to, but the M13 is typically considered one of the most accurate assault rifles of the Modern Warfare guns. Then moving on to the Krig. You're probably very familiar with the Krig. A lot of players, pro players, content creators, streamers have been talking about and using the Krig for quite a while now, but it's recently caught some nerfs, which is why we're talking about this right now. Its recoil pattern is considered relatively easy, although while it does start off going pretty much straight up and a bit to the left, it does take this drastic turn to the right, and then it heads straight up pretty much. It's after this, it's very easy to control. And if you can actually down a player before it ever gets to this point, you never have to deal with this drastic curve up and to the right. So the Krig is generally considered a very, very easy gun to control in Warzone. So at the end of the day, you just need to decide if you want a faster time to kill and maybe a little bit higher magnitude recoil, or if you like the recoil pattern of the Krig, but you're okay with taking a little more time to kill an enemy. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these guns, but the big thing in this story to me is that it's the first time in a long time that some old school Modern Warfare assault rifles have been able to keep up with a Cold War assault rifle. And to me, this is a great thing. I really like this change. I really like what Raven's been doing, and hopefully you do too.